From the Chicago Sun-Times newsroom, I'm Natasha Korecki, and this is Off Message, our weekly political talk show. Joining me this week is our City Hall reporter, Fran Spielman, columnist Neil Steinberg, and Watchdog reporter and early and often columnist Dan Mihalopoulos. This week we are going to focus a little bit on a not very flattering poll that you wrote about in Early and Often over the weekend. Rahm Emanuel's numbers are pretty lousy, aren't they?
Right, 29% overall of the people who said they would vote for him today, 8% among African Americans, 2% among Hispanics. Only fewer than 1 in 5 think he's doing a better job running the city than Daley. I mean, this is really low. And I'm told that even the mayor's own numbers, while a little bit higher, perhaps in the low teens among African Americans, are still in the 30s maybe overall, which is not where you want to be when you're an incumbent.
So why do people not like Rahm Emanuel? Is it what he's done or how he's doing it?
I think it's a lot style. The mayor doesn't seem to understand that the how is as important as the why. He thinks the end justifies the means. So if you close 50 schools and then you open a bunch and you open Obama Prep and you spend $60 million on and put it right near Walter Payton, which is also getting a $14 million addition, that's going to stick in the craw of African Americans.
He's good at talking, he's bad at listening. Okay, and he thinks because he walks through a Walmart for half an hour every once in a while that he doesn't have to actually listen to what people are saying. And so I think as Don Rose said, Rahm Emanuel didn't get to where he is by his eloquence. He's not used to selling his ideas to the city, and this is the result.
But if what he was doing was acceptable, people would like it no matter how he did it,
No,
right?
it's not true. I mean, those schools had to be closed. You know, if you looked at Chicagoland, Fenger had 400 kids for a 1,600-person school. So nobody's saying that now the kids are packed into Quonset huts or something. I mean, yes, the parents themselves are affected, but if he put more effort into selling this change, I think that his popularity wouldn't take the hit that it did.
In defense of Rahm Emanuel, if I may, for once, perhaps, these are tough times still. Very bad situation that he inherited. Do I think that he's been forthright from the beginning about what needs to be done or what he thinks needs to be done? No. I think that he has had a big problem in trying to explain why he thinks things need to be done just his way. But it's tough times, and nobody who in that spot would be popular right now.
But tough times and tough choices is one thing, and then he goes and he's opening schools and putting additions on the wealthier sides of the city. How do you explain that to people?
Or the arena on the near south side that they're talking about for DePaul. I don't know where that money comes from, the new library in Chinatown.
CPS? Right. I mean,
he's using TIF money, this as this pot of gold, and that's why he doesn't want to use it for pensions, because he needs it to build these schools. But the thing is, there is a disconnect, the poll shows, between what Rahm Emanuel thinks the city should be and what his emphasis is, and what Richard M. Daley and the public seem to want. The public had a view of Daley as the neighborhoods guy, the guy who ran around the city jotting down notes and
scraping
pointing
gum
out
off the street.
Exactly, and the idea that Rahm has a lesser approval rating in terms of this running the city than Daley is astounding, considering the problems that Daley left behind.
well, he keeps blaming all the problems on Daley, right?
Well, right, and there's an impression of he is. He's not saying it by name.
Okay, yes, he doesn't.
Right.
But there's an impression of Rahm Emanuel as being disconnected with what the voters want. Daley was a neighborhoods guy. Daley was the guy who didn't want any other job but this. There is a feeling that Rahm Emanuel is passing through and that he has his eyes on things that the public really doesn't care about.
A lot of these trends, although Daley stylistically sounded more like a Chicagoan and really probably was much more comfortable in the neighborhoods than perhaps Rahm is, at the same time did start a lot of these trends, I think. You know, talk about income inequality and two Chicagos and some of the things that are becoming the hallmarks of criticizing Rahm Emanuel. I think he's accelerated a lot of those policies, but I think a lot of it began under
question.
Daley.
Well, so this week he reacts to the poll. Does he shrug it off? Do you think that he's thinking about it?
I think he's definitely thinking about it. I was astounded that he did not try to counter it and say, well, my numbers show differently. I'm not that low. No, he said, we have ups and downs. I'm going to stay with it. And the one thing he did acknowledge publicly was that his wife would like him to slow down and be a little more patient, and that maybe I need to listen more. So he gets the fact that he needs to open his
home
ears.
or in the city hall?
I think both. I think a little bit of both.
And he dared to wear denim to the Hawks game the other day.
Well, that was okay. And then, of course, he seized on that to soften his image by saying, I love my daughter. If she's 15 and she wants to be with me, don't tell me about what I'm wearing.
And he grew a little emotional there, didn't he?
Well, I'm not so sure about that. But he saw the ability to show that softer side of the doting father.
Okay, well, let's switch to news this week about the Shakman order on political hiring. And as I understand it, there's going to be an agreed order where there's no more Shakman anymore.
And no more hiring monitor.
And no more hiring monitor. So what does this mean?
Well,
are we free of corruption in City Hall now?
Well, I wouldn't count on that, but it means that the city will be out from under the shackles of a federal hiring monitor and out from under the costs of $23 million so far. The city had to create a $12 million fund to compensate the victims of this rigged hiring system. Daley's former patronage chief, his former streets and sand commissioner, and several others were convicted of rigging hiring and promotions to benefit these HDO and other pro-Daley armies. So this means that the city will police itself with the inspector general watching, with hiring plans in place in every department, and training for everybody, and hope that all goes well, and maybe it won't.
Of course it won't. The cat's away, the mice will play. The things Fran just mentioned happened under the Shakman decree. So with it in place, all these improprieties, illegalities happen. What's going to happen when it's not in place?
You're saying City Hall can't police itself?
Well,
Shocked.
it depends on who's in City Hall. Look, before the Sorge case exploded, before patronage became criminalized, there was an Encyclopedia of Chicago entry. This was published in 2004. Nice, big, thick book that talked about the Chicago machine and said the Chicago machine was an anachronism and that patronage had unequivocally ended decades ago with the Shakman decree when Harold Washington signed it in 1983. Now, not to be cynical, but I do think the fact that they took some people, put them in jail, put them in federal prison for this is a huge deterrent. Will the temptation still be there? Will people still be trying to do this? Absolutely. But right now, I don't see the same sort of machine being rebuilt by Rahm Emanuel. And actually, I think that's part of the problem that he has, not just with his popularity, but also with scaring aldermen into doing what he wants them to do, for instance, on this property tax increase. He doesn't have many patronage armies around the city like the ones that helped him get elected to Congress, frankly, at the command of Richard Daley.
Well, does Rahm deserve some credit here for?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Shakman, I was surprised, actually said, we could not do this under Daley.
Right.
We were able. What is he doing differently that helped us get over the
Well,
line?
first of all, he punished the people who testified under grants of immunity during the trial, who weren't prosecuted but were complicit. He appointed as his human resources commissioner a woman who was doing hiring oversight for the inspector general. And that would have been something that David Hoffman said would never have happened under Daley. So Daley wanted this to go away. He wanted the headlines to go away. After he created the $12 million fund to compensate the victims, he wanted to go into court and just be done with it. But it didn't happen because the will wasn't there. I think Rahm Emanuel has the will to do it mostly because he wants to get out from under the money. We can't afford it.
Okay, well, with that, let's not forget quotes of the week. Why don't we start with you, Fran?
Okay, the moment you decide that you're going to blow with the wind, folks are smart and they'll smell it. That's Rahm Emanuel saying, I'm not going to compromise my principles just because my poll numbers are down.
This is from the protesters wanting a $15 wage in McDonald's. We're not replaceable. And this is one of the strikers basically saying that, and I think she's right, that McDonald's, they're all on image. And if you associate McDonald's with wage slavery, maybe you're not going to get your burger there.
John Bills, he's the former city official who allegedly helped rig the contracting process for the red light camera contractor for the city. He said, it's time to make good, is what he told them after he had sabotaged the bid of a rival who wanted that contract, and apparently they did make good to the tune of, I don't know how many,
$177 grand.
$177,000 condo, and help with his divorce lawyer, his girlfriend's rent. But I guess he was a big Sox fan, though. We can say that for him.
There was a nice picture of that, wasn't there? And I will circle back with Tony Preckwinkle and Rahm Emanuel, a My Chicago segment with WTTW, car ride video of Tony Preckwinkle. She's asked a very simple question: do you and Rahm get along? And sometimes it's what you don't say. And then she just says,
we work together.
With that, thank you for joining us this week, and join us next week on Off Message.